overall, while it could all go completely tits up when it hits the economy, I think that their design goals are really good.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think we'll just have to head into the alpha whenever that happens and judge, have they achieved their goals?
Yeah, that's
see how that goes.
That's exactly it. But before we go any further, this is in regards to the fact that you need the mythic reagents to make the mythic level gear. Solo, casual, ... no high level gear for you. And so as a crafter, you need to make enough money to pay for your 20 plus 15 carries every week. This highlights what I think is a very interesting problem in World of Warcraft. A very interesting problem in gearing overall. If you're a solo or a casual player, what makes you think you deserve high-level gear?
You don't.
That's not for you. That's not for solos. That's not for casuals. The game should have more content and more avenues of achievement for you. That's absolutely sure. And that's what they're kind of actually trying to do with this. Because this means that you can craft mythic level gear, not for yourself, but for someone else using their reagents. Obviously, that requires some economic stuff. You may have to go and be able to physically do that for them.
And you can charge a commission and make some gold from that.
Yeah, by being one of the best things on the server. And that's specifically, they're trying to make a way for you to feel accomplished without actually needing to get the gear. And this is where World of Warcraft has run into this problem of... And this is where they keep this alive through the heroic raid item level being the one you can get to through the smaller stuff and the upgrades. Because this means that maybe depends on how they actually implement it. I think it looks to mean that you could do normals all day long. In the same way you can get a load of, well, I mean, outside the keystone rating stuff, but it's like, it seems to mean you could probably get heroic gear without ever having to actually do a lot of heroic. But that's where the whole problem comes, especially when you think about as a crafter, you need to make the money to pay for your 15 carries every week. That content ostensibly isn't for you. Why are you paying for it? Why are you doing it? For what reason on God's green earth are you actually doing that?
Because
why are you doing it? What makes you think that's for you when it's not?
Because they're not playing the game for the experience.
Yeah.
They are in a reward loop and they want to get more pallets from the Skinner box.
Yeah.
But like if that's how you're thinking about the game, like, so you don't want to do that content. You want the thing from that content. Is it worth re-examining why you're playing the game? Because there's probably a game where the highest end reward is something that you can get with the way that you want to play the game. That's, I guess, where I go. It's like, I don't get angry that I don't have a mythic raid mount. That's not for me. That's for people who do the raid in mythic. It's not for me. Why on earth would I expect to get that mount? Or, like, be entitled to that mount? I haven't paid a sub fee for the mount. I'm not buying the mount. I'm paying a sub fee to play the game. And within that game, I know that there are things that are not for me. I don't want elite PvP gear. I mean, it would be nice to have, but I'm not good enough. If I could run around with elite PvP appearances, that would completely cheapen what an elite PvP appearance is for the people who have it in this game that is a virtual world, that is an MMO, where what is on someone's character should matter because it should reflect what they've done.
No, because as pointed out, I literally just lost it 1 second, but it is, yeah, Michael Davidson, the issue is not then how they're thinking about the game, it's how the game's designed to make them think. And that's the issue that, you know, obviously you look across the fence to FF14, you see how gearing is not a treadmill for them. It's kind of a little bit once you're into Savage gearing, but it's kind of like it's not really a big deal. You kind of get it in happy days. If you're a Savage Raider, you farm it out, you get it happy days. But most people don't think about gear because they're not supposed to. They go think about other things. They go get some gil to RMT. It happens in both games. Only one game posts every week how many accounts have banned, but anyway, that's a different kettle of fish. It's more the idea that there's more things to do and more little directions to go, so no one's feeling left out. And that's the problem with World of Warcraft being this super centralized thing where all these players who used to play and not give a shit about gear, or even if they did give a shit about gear, they could get it pretty handy. Now there's like an upper echelon attached on, they can't get through the gate. And that's the thing of like the game needs to be designed a way to actually figure that out in a way.
It just needs to be more content for casual players.
Yeah, because if anyone's sitting thinking, well, I should get Mythic gear, or do you want to do Mythic rating? No, then what the fuck are you getting the Mythic gear for?
Well, even
and then if you boost it, all you're doing is just devaluing Mythic gear and making it a whole weird economical fucking nightmare.
Yeah, and like even within the Mythic raiding community, there's now a discussion about whether the Mythic gear, should have, should even have stats. That's been an interesting one to kind of watch unfold.
Yeah, it's so insane to me that I keep saying that as like one of the root causes of boosting and of a lot of problems. Because I was watching recently, I talked about it recently, but I went back to watch it to make sure I had the point right. But it was Preach's fresh account thing in Legion.
Oh yeah,
and the thing that he encountered was that, let me see if I can just word this properly, but effectively, because of how difficulty scales and how gear scales in World of Warcraft, players can just they can outgear so much until they hit the skill wall. And they've hit the skill wall so long after they've been in the gearing wall that now they don't understand. And they've gotten to a point where they should be, they are doing like 15s, or they've got the gear to do 15s, but they don't know how to actually complete one of those. And then that's where boosting comes in, because you feel frustrated and just get boosted. And I think it all stems from this, like, people want gear, like, but why? And that's a problem that the game should, I think, fundamentally address in some capacity. Obviously now is not the time, because there are bigger fish to fry, I think.
Yeah.
With actually making Dragonflight a good enough experience. But I think that's fundamentally one of the problems of World of Warcraft is now designed at multiple difficulty levels. It wasn't always. That change, and players hitting that change like a brick wall, is causing severe problems with basically every level of the game in terms of
and
people not playing.
Treating it like a big seasonal game. Like, one thing that happened in Legion is, like, the catch-up would end up coming out, like, during the previous tier in a way.
Yeah.
Because you remember you get access to the Broken Shore and all of its stuff before the Tomb of Sargeras came out.
Yeah.
Because of the way they did it, but now they've codified it on the seasons. So, like, there absolutely needs to be something for the open world players to do. It's kind of hard to know exactly what. I think they should have a way of getting, like, really good gear sets that are really good in the content that they do.
Yep.
Maybe you need a way to have their... See, it's kind of tricky, right? Because imagine if you let them have high item level gear, but via the itemization going... you actually just take some of the itemization budget out of stats and you put it into green text. Yeah. But the green text applies to the open world. Meaning that it's a bit like PvP gear back in, say, TBC, where you'd have a bunch of people, they go around trying to get the welfare epics, but of course, item level for item level, some of that budget has went into resilience, which you don't need in PvE. So you could do something like that to still let open world players have gear that's, like, super powerful in the open world and lets them do cool shit and feel really strong and, go fight a world boss and rare mobs and stuff and feel like a total badass, feel really strong, but not in such a way where they're then going to be taking... Maybe that gear will fare pretty okay in a normal raid, and we'll be able to let that player have their on-ramp to that sort of content, but certainly not compete with a heroic raid gear, as an example. Maybe something like that. So certainly they need to do more for players to have gear progression outside of the instanced content. They just need to actually design that.
Yeah, which they sort of did a little bit with Ciphers, right? The ZM gear. Was that?
They've tried that in various different times, and I guess the Cipher gear, like, having those effects was cool. Yeah. I think for a lot of people, though, I don't know how well the Cipher system worked, to be honest.
Neither do I. But I do have, I'm just thinking about my experience from earlier this week. Was it Tuesday night? Yeah, it was Tuesday night, where I went into Vigilant Guardian LFR.
Oh boy.
On a very new character that I was like, okay, I've got like a little bit. I'm going to go and figure out a video. I'm going to go and figure out a video game. I literally just read a thing completely distracted. So the video game college. But no, I went into LFR to get an item. Thinking, maybe I'll get an item. Maybe I won't, because this game's RNG hell and I hate playing it. But fuck it, let's see. Will I get an item from this quick boss before I go to bed? Wiped Vigilant Guardian. Wiped in the first boss because the average damage coming out of players was like 3k. I don't even know if that's entirely relevant to this. I just wanted to say it because I think it's something to do with the fact that people think gear is a thing instead of skill, and that's a whole thing. The whole problem of gearing things, whereas the game's gotten harder to physically play in terms of how much skill you need to get the damage out. Even though it's still relatively simple, there's a lot of intricacies that kind of are more important now, whereas they weren't important before. The game's getting harder and players aren't getting any better on average. There's some of the players are getting better and keeping up with it, as you can tell from Mythic players. Like, the game get as hard as possible, and the top end of Mythic players will clear it easy. Yeah. But there's just there's a massive raft of like solo and casual players that are super left behind. And this is one attempt at trying to make something for them.
Yeah.
And then they're going, but I can't get the best stuff from the kind of content that I don't want to do anyway. I'm angry at this now.
I can't get the achievement for completing Devil May Cry 5 at the hardest difficulty because I'm not good enough at the game. And I'm angry.
I have to pay for this now. Can I swipe? Yeah, that's...
Yes, buy a Devil May Cry booster.
I mean, that's the thing, right? They actually did put red orbs into Devil May Cry 5 to buy, and they were completely pointless, and no one bought them, I think, and was like, what the fuck? Why'd you... Everyone is mad, but no one is that mad. You're like, this is pointless. This is like... you just get... You've basically maxed out your thing from playing, so what's the point? That was a very weird sidebar.
Huh.
But yeah, no, it is very, very, very... it's very weird. And I understand what people are saying about the like mounts and the actual transmogrification people wanting. But it's like, yeah, there's probably, you should have the one that's good for the good players and the one for the other players. I shouldn't even say good players. The players who want to do hard combat content. They shouldn't be the only players in the game. But they are.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting indeed.